The Delta strain of the coronavirus has spread globally to now become the most prominent variant of the coronavirus in the world. It has been used by politicians as a justification for a return to lockdowns and other measures to control the spread of the virus. But what actually is the Delta variant? In order to answer this question, we must look at both general and specific details of the Delta strain. Starting with the general details, there are a few questions which we have to answer. First of all, what is the Delta strain? The Delta strain of the coronavirus originated in India, first appearing in October last year. It is one of at least 10 current variants around the world. The World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control created a tripartite classification system for COVID-19 variants. The first class is a variant of interest. These may lead to outbreaks, but are not currently widespread. They may be more contagious or have the capacity to escape natural or inoculated immunity, that is, immunity from either getting the strain or from vaccine. The second is a variant of concern. These are known through research to be more contagious or virulent. They may reduce the effectiveness of vaccines and/or therapeutics. And the third is a variant of high consequence. These are more deadly, cause more hospitalizations, and reduce the effectiveness of vaccines. There are currently 7 variants of interest, 4 variants of concern, and no variants of high consequence, according to the CDC. The Delta strain has been labeled as a variant of concern because it appears to be more contagious. The second question is what makes the Delta strain different? In particular, the CDC has listed 3 attributes of the Delta variant. The first is increased transmissibility. The second is a potential reduction in neutralization by some emergency use authorization monoclonal antibody treatments. That is to say, a potential reduction in the effectiveness of emergency use therapeutic treatments. And the third, a potential reduction in neutralization by post-vaccination sera. Post-vaccination sera refers to the serum which provides immunity to the disease following vaccination. Hence, this is to say a potential reduction in the effectiveness of the vaccines in combating the virus. We will get into some more specific data on the transmissibility and virulence of the Delta strain, as well as how effective the vaccines are in combating it later. Something I will point out here is that the CDC makes no mention on the virulence of the Delta strain, and this appears to be a common thread as politicians and other authorities seem to be skipping over this key piece of information. I believe that it is because, as we will see later, the deadliness of the Delta strain seems to be much lower than the original strain. Bureaucrats probably believe that if they cite this data, then people will begin to become more relaxed about the virus. This could worry the elites for 2 possible reasons. First, if they are genuinely concerned with the well-being of their constituents, then they would be concerned that people will become complacent, leading to outbreaks. Now, this is not necessarily a justification for suppressing the information, rather just a suggestion of a possible motive. The second, and if they are more self-serving politicians, as many are known to be, then they might be afraid that such a mutation shows that we will be able to live with the virus more easily, which would force them to relinquish the additional power which many of them have accrued over the last 18 months. This would be the reason why many corporate mercenaries who have garnered significant money and power during the virus are opposed to opening back up, and instead want to lecture the public about how we need to stay locked down and that we must receive experimental vaccines for the benefit of society, while they continue to grab power and wealth at their own accord. This is a sacrifice of our individual liberties for the greater good, an arbitrary and meaningless term which seeks to fill us with guilt and captivate our inherent compassion as human beings for each other in order to ultimately assist those same elites who are stigmatizing us. The third question I will raise is, how did the Delta strain get here? This question does not yet have a conclusive answer. However, it is suspected that the strain initially leaked out of the New South Wales quarantine system. The fourth question, how did the mutation happen? The development of different strains of viruses is a common process which we are very familiar with. In particular, it happens with the flu every year and is the reason why there is a new flu shot every year. Every time a new person is infected with the virus, thousands of copies are made. Sometimes this process goes wrong and some of the genetic code is changed. Thus, the virus mutates. Most of the time, these mutations are ineffectual, but sometimes these mutations can lead to changes in the virality and/or the transmissibility of the virus. Changes can also lead to vaccines becoming less effective. Dr. Inshi Yildirim, a Yale Medicine pediatric infectious diseases specialist and a vaccinologist, spoke about this. They said that all viruses evolve over time and undergo changes as they spread and replicate. Usually, viruses mutate according to the law of declining virality. This is something I mentioned in one of my earlier videos. This is the concept where viruses generally become more transmissible and less deadly over time. The reason that this happens is because the virus is looking to extend its lifespan by both attaching to more hosts, but also being able to live without killing the host. As reported by ABC News national medical reporter Sophie Scott and ABC specialist reporting teams Lenny Thorne, the Delta variant has been called the double mutant because it picked up two major changes. An article on WebMD pointed out that these changes are mutations on the spike protein that make it easier for the Delta variant to infect human cells. It continued to point out that this means people may be more contagious if they contract the virus and more easily spread it to others. This is something we'll expand upon later when we look at the transmissibility. In an article from the Washington Post, Monica Gandhi, an infectious disease expert at UC San Francisco, said that the Delta variant compared to the other variants is most likely to latch onto cells in a host, and it attacks that host better than the other variants because it can replicate itself better. As we will validate empirically later, this information all indicates that the Delta variant is most transmissible of the variants. The final general question is, what are the symptoms of the Delta variant? That same WebMD article highlighted some symptoms of the Delta strain. It said, these symptoms are similar to those with the original coronavirus strain and other variants, including a persistent cough, headache, fever, and sore throat. At the same time, COVID-19 patients in the UK have reported that some symptoms are slightly different for Delta, according to data from the ZOE COVID Symptoms Study. Cough and loss of smell seem to be less common, but headache, sore throat, runny nose, and fever seem to be more common.